Okay, we are on page 2. And some of you may think, well, you're going a little slow for me. Well, we do pick up the pace. Because this is for beginners, and most of my albums are, we do kind of start off slower so they can get the hang of a simple pocket or a fold out. And then once they've created that, we can go a little bit faster. This one is a really good one for beginners because we're not die cutting. All we're doing is using paper punches, our scoring board, and adding embellishments and cutting paper. Okay, so for this one, we're going to do it's going to look like an envelope by the time we're done. And then when we open it up, there'll be plenty of places to just plant some photos in there and a little pocket too. Let's start off with the top piece. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 7 3/4 inch wide by 5 inches. And then let's grab our scoring board. And we're going to lay this down so that we're 5 inches across the board. At 4 3/8 we're going to score. And at 4 1/2 inches we're going to score. Let's fold on our score lines here. And you'll want to try and make that as even as possible. Okay, up here is our flap, and you will see that you have a top and a bottom score line. On the bottom score line, we're going to pinch so that that flap is completely tucked back behind while we work on this. Place your ruler down at the bottom. Remember, you're starting at 0 if you're using mine. So 0 is lined up with the left side of this paper, and we are 7 3/4 inch across. At 3 7/8 of an inch, let's make a pencil mark, and that should put us somewhere in the middle there. Okay, let's place our ruler over to the side here. I have the bottom at 1 1/2. And I'm going to make a mark right here at the 0. And on this side too, I'm going to line this up with 1 1/2. I'm going to make another mark. Now I'm just going to use my ruler, and I'm going to draw from that down to the bottom. And I'll do it here too. Okay? Now you can either put this on your paper cutter to get a straight cut and just cut on your pencil marks so that you make a point. And I'll show you what mine looks like. Or you can use your scissors and hand cut that. Alrighty, so this is what we should have, and you'll want to erase any pencil marks that you can see. That looks good. In your reserves, you will find the cover, the bottom half of the cover of our paper pack. So the first thing we're going to do is cut this trim side piece off. So I'll put it on my paper cutter and slice that down. Put this back in your reserves because there still is something on here we could possibly use. So let's look at our paper like this. Measure over 4 1/4 inches and cut. For now, just stick this in reserves. Okay, so what I want you to do is tuck this back behind. And when you bring this over your paper, you're going to bring that over so when you're looking at it, you're going to leave about a 1/16 of an inch of white overhang, just like that. And make sure you're tucked up in there really good. And we're going to lay that down. All we're going to do now is use our pencil and right to about over here, leave yourself about a 1/16, and what you can do is just make a mark like that. So I am going to cut, and I'll show you. I'm going to stick this in my reserves. And now I'm going to cut from here down and here over where those lines are. These two cuttings put in your reserves. If you can see any pencil mark, you'll want to erase it. So when you place this on here, we're probably going to have to trim a little bit off there, I imagine. Maybe not. Nope, actually you should have a nice fit with a little bit of white showing on the top and the sides and the bottom. So I'm going to apply glue. That was a really good cut actually. And I'm going to glue this down. Let's flip that up. The little flap is now at the bottom. Grab one of your magnets and we're just going to dab a little bit of glue, and that's about a 1/2 inch down from the tip there, and we'll place it. We're not going to worry about the other side of the magnet just yet. Okay, let's find our piece for right here. In your reserves, you should find this piece. On the back, it looks like this. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Now with this though, you'll see you have a bottom score line and a top score line. On the top score line, bring that down to where it's underneath your paper, about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch. And we're just going to bring that down. Okay, make sure your sides are straight. And we are going to draw. Now over here you're going to leave the same amount. So I stopped right here and I'll make a mark. So now all I'm going to do is my first cut is going to be here to cut it down, and then I'm going to cut like that. All these scrap pieces go in our reserves. Okay. And we are going to glue that down, but we can't glue it down until we have a nice fit. For me, I'm a little wide with this because I can't see, if I lay this down, I can't see my white cardstock. So I'm going to make a mark here so I'm even, and a mark here. And I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming here and here. Now I'm going to lay this down and see how I fit. So if I apply glue to the back of this now, I'll be able to see when I mount this white cardstock side, and if you are too close to that upper score line, you'll have to trim off the bottom a little bit of this before you glue it down. But mine looks like it's going to fit. And right here on this, I'm going to make sure I get around that. Okay, let's place it, making sure I'm even as I can anyway. Okay, so that is down. I'm going to set this off to the side. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches by 7 3/4 of an inch. Grab your scoring board and let's place our paper. We are 6 inches across at 5 3/8. Let's score. And at 5 1/2 inches, let's score. And then we're going to fold on our score lines. Okay, right now for this, looking at it, our flap is at the bottom. We have a lower score line and an upper score line. On the top score line, let's pinch on it and fold that flap completely back behind. So all we have right now to look at is what needs to be covered with paper. Okay, flap is down here, tucked back behind. Let's grab that same deeper edge punch, and I used embroidery on the previous page, so I'm going to do the same thing on this one, and I'm going to punch along the long side. In your reserves you will find this sheet. On the back it's the blueprint with the little flowers and leaves. This is what we want, and what we're going to do here is we're going to place this to where we can still see about a 1/16 inch of white on this side, and we're going to put it right up underneath that trim, And with a pencil, we're going to come over to where the side of our white cardstock is. We're going to measure in about a 1/16 of an inch and make a mark on our blue paper. So now let's trim. Place this in our reserves. Alright, so make sure that that flap is completely back behind. This should be a good fit side to side, giving us a white border on each side. So now all we need to do is come down here and measure to fit. And I'm just going to make a pencil mark. Remember, you're going to leave a little bit of white showing of your cardstock. And now I'm going to trim that. Stick this in your reserves. Okay, we can't glue this down just yet because our magnet needs to be placed on here. And I'm going to show you how to find an accurate placement of your magnet using the mate here. So what we want to do is attach. So let's do the bottom piece first. So here's your flap. There's a top score line and the bottom one. On the bottom one now, let's pinch on that so you're able to see your other score line up there. Here's our sheet, and we're just going to hook that right on over. Make sure you are straight and it pressed down, and I'm going to hold it, pinch it, and if you feel it move, you'll want to realign it. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the flap. Okay, so now what you can do is push full back on that other score line and then push up so that when you feel with your hand on the side, it should be flat. Okay, it's time to attach the top piece. So your flap's up here. You have a bottom score and a top score. On the top one, let's pinch it. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hook it back behind, line it up with your sides of your bottom piece. Okay, once you have it in place, pinch it, place it, and keep it steady. And we're going to tack it down. Now, if you don't like using hot glue, you're having an issue, just use your white glue. I just use it for quick tacking purposes. Okay, once you have that, just push it back up on that other score line, so now when you fill, it should be flat. Alright, let's open this up. Let's find the mate to that magnet. Okay, so this is the easiest way I can tell you. Put your magnet over the other one. Grab your glue, and in the center, just a small little dot of glue. Now you're going to make sure that you are flat down here. This is where it needs to be. And when you bring this over, you just tap. And when you lift, you will be able to see where that glue is. So you're going to place your magnet. There's glue on this. There's glue down here. I'm going to add a little more glue. So make sure your magnet goes glue to glue. Otherwise, you'll put your magnet on the wrong way. Okay? Now let's apply glue to this and glue that down. Okay, let's open this up. And let's get a piece for down here. In your paper pack, you will find this print on the back. It is this. Measure over 4 inches and cut. And that should put you in between these two. Stick this off to the side for a moment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just place this down like so. Leave yourself about a 1/16 of an inch of white showing. And we're going to do the same over here. Measure to fit, and we are going to cut this. Okay, so hang tight for this. Just stick this off to the side. Flip this over. And what you're going to want to do is verify that this is going to fit without interfering with that lower score line. If you need to trim off just a little bit here, go ahead. If not, center that, and glue it down. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/8 inch. And then what we're going to do is grab our little 1/2 inch punch, and we're going to punch along the short side. Okay? So this is what you should have. We are going to glue this down right like this, right on top of it, so it should fit good. So let's add our glue, and I'll leave a little bit of a white border over here. Make sure I match up. Okay, so with this there is no wrapping of a pocket. So all I want to do is when I flip this over is I'm going to put a very fine line of glue on each side. Okay, and then I'm going to place it right here. Remember, steer clear of that score line, so if you have to trim yours a little bit, do so. So just make sure that that's down. And I like to push mine together with my fingers like this just to pop it out a little. Makes it easier to slide things in and out. Here's a scrap piece. So there is a little pocket. And there's a nice big area right here so that you can just place a photo. So I'm going to close this up. There is one more thing I wanted to get at. Let's put this in our reserves. Instead of using that, we're going to drag this sheet out. And right here at the top, let's just cut this out. And then we'll return this to our reserves. And we'll cut around outside that. We're going to do what we did before, apply glue, find a scratch piece of cardstock, and glue that down and cut around it, just leaving a little bit of white showing around there. Okay, so I have mine. I'm going to grab a little bit of baby's breath here, and I'm going to place it. I'm going to add glue to the back of this, making sure I don't get the bottom half, because when I place this, it's going to place right like this. So I think I'm going to use hot glue for this one. Quick tacking. Okay, got that. Let's cut some bling to fit right over here and on the other side. There we go. Making sure that your bling does not go over the side of your page over there. And that will take a moment for it to grab and dry. Let's grab a leaf. I'm just going to slide that there. I'm going to grab one of these flowers and stick it right there. I have some of these Tim Holtz flowers here. Just going to stick them here and there. And you can place yours any way you'd like. Okay, I am grabbing the stickles. It's mercury glass. And I am going to just add a little bit like I did to the other. And this is real sparing. You know, you don't have to put a whole lot. Now if you wanted to, you could even go around this and you just use a real fine line. I'm going to place one more of these bluebell flowers right here, I think. And then I'll add the mercury glass. And then we're going to let this dry. And when it's done drying, we're going to flip it over. We're going to apply score tape to the back like we did the other one. And I'll show you mine. So I'm going to take about a 15-minute break, and then hopefully it will be dry by then. So I've got my score tape around the outside like a picture frame, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. One down the middle, and 2 on either side. And then we're going to mount this in our book together. This is page 2, and then we'll mount page 1 together. So let's grab our book. So here's page 2. And what I like to do, because this is all white, is I'm going to grab this out of my reserves. And all I'm going to do is just place that so I can see the edges of where my paper falls. I'm going to remove the score tape backing. And when I place this, I'm going to come over to the right-hand side, all the way up to where the scallops are, as you can see. And I'm going to leave myself a little bit of white showing top and bottom of my page. So here I go. I've got the backing off. Now one thing is, score tape is not forgiving. So once I lay this down, it's pretty much down. And we want to steer clear of that score line there, because that's our hinge of how our paper goes. So I'm going to come over to the right. Like I said, I'll leave a little bit of white showing. I'm going to come to the edge where the scallop is, and I'm going to place this. Okay, now I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to press this down really good. Okay, so the reason why we place page 2 before we do page 1, it's easier that way because our covers are bigger than our inner pages. And it's easier for us to line this up with the top and bottom of page 2 once this has been placed. So I'm going to remove my score tape, and again we steer clear of those hinges. Alrighty, so here's this, and again my hinge is right here, and all you do is just kind of watch the top of the other one as best you can. If you get it on a little crooked, it is not the end of the world. People really aren't going to notice too much if it is, because they're too involved with seeing everything else that is on your page and your photographs. So, and we're just going to make sure that that is down really good. So page 1 and 2 are now in here, and now we're on to page 3. And now that we've done a basic page 1 and 2, page 3 we can add a little more stuff to it. Page 3. So in your paper pack you will find this sheet on the back. It looks like this. We're going to turn our paper so it's sideways. We're going to measure over 6 inches and cut. Okay, this side of the sheet that has the bird here and here, we're going to set off to the side for page 4. I'm not going to put that in my reserves just in case I don't want to cut into that. So we're going to work with this, measure over 1.5 inches and cut. Stick this off to the side. We might be using that shortly. Now for this one, we're going to cut our page a little bit different because we're going to have a little bit more bulk, and we want to make sure we are clear of the hinges when we do place this in. So measure over 7.5 inches and cut. Stick this in your reserves. Cut 2 pieces of cardstock that are 6 inches by 7.5 inches. We're going to score these each the same. We're 7.5 inches across the board. At 6 5/8 we're going to score, and at 6 3/4 inch we're going to score. And we're going to do the same here, 6 5/8 and 6 3/4. Then we're going to fold on our score lines. Okay, my hinge is over here, and what we're going to do on this side is I am in the EK Tools. It's large. It's the dotted scallop, and so the hinge is here. I'm going to stick this right in the middle there, and I'm going to punch, and then I'll move over and punch the rest. And I'm also going to do that on this side, the hinge down here. Center this, punch, and then punch the sides. And I'll show you what mine looks like. So I've got mine punched, like so. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 2.5 inches by 8 inches. I've got the same punch that I used on these. So all I'm going to do is on the long side is I'm going to center this so that I have equal amounts hanging over the side, and I'm going to make my first punch. And then I'm going to punch the rest on each side. So this is what you should have so far. And if you want to continue to punch off this, you can. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is once you do that, you're going to flip it over. And you're going to line this up the same, equal amounts on each side. And I'm kind of looking here to make sure that I'm going to be equal. And then I'm going to punch. And then I'm going to continue on to punch through. Okay, so this is what you should have. And all we need to do here is snip off the end. And I'm going to round that off a bit. Next, take your scissors and divide these, kind of rounding off the corners if you can. Okay, let's set these off to the side. Next, cut a piece of cardstock and look in your reserves to 1 5/8 inch wide by 8 inches long. Alrighty, this piece I had you set aside. It's darker on one side and lighter on the other, and we're going to use the lighter. I have my color box, and it's the sky blue. And I'm just going to lightly ink around these edges. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to center this side by side, leaving ourselves about equal amounts of white so that we can bend these as flaps. So let's do that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to line this up. The top of our decorative paper and the bottom is going to line up here. And once we have that centered and it's straight, we're going to pinch and flip it over, and we're just going to pull that flap back behind, and we're going to tack that down. And we'll do the same up here. Okay, we'll flip it back over. So once we get this mounted in our book and it flattens out, it will be it'll be a little bit tighter of a fit, but you don't want it too tight because you want to be able to slide your pictures or your folders in there. Alright, in your reserves you will find this blueprint. On the back we'll find these. We're going to cut out this one. So I'm just going to start off by going like this. I'm going to stick this back in my reserves. And then I'm going to cut out and around. I'm going to use my sky blue, and I'm going to ink around the edges of this. Next, I'm going to grab one of these. I'm going to apply glue, and I'm going to glue that down just like that. I'm in my stretch lace. It's this one. And I'm going to cut a piece that will fit top to bottom. Then I'm going to apply glue and glue that down right to the middle there. Next, I'm going to take this and I'm going to glue it down right in the center. And I'm going to use my hot glue because it dries quicker on the fabric. We're going to attach these, and looking at yours like this, you should have an outer score line and an inner score line. On the outer one, let's pinch it. And we're just going to slide that, make sure it is on. And once you have it in place, flip it over, hold it, and we're going to tack this down. Okay, and then I can push this back on the other score, feel with my finger, and it should be a flat, straight edge there. Okay, let's do the same over here. Inner score line, outer score line. On the outer one, we're going to pinch and we're going to attach this, just kind of like the same way we did over there. Just making sure you line up, you're even, pinch, and then you can pull it back. And that's what you should have. So let's open this up and we're going to put a magnet down. I've got a magnet and I am going to place this right here, and we'll attach the mate shortly. But let's first find our paper for the inside. In your paper pack you will find this print, the blue one. On the back it is beige. Measure over 5 1/8 inch and cut. The larger piece goes in our reserves. Let's turn that and let's measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. And then we're going to measure over again 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. So what you should have is this left over to put in our reserves. We're going to set this one off to the side. And this one should fit right like this, leaving you 1/8 of an inch in from that score line there. And it isn't going to cover your magnet all the way, but you will have white border top and bottom. So let's apply glue and glue that down. Grab one of these, and what we're going to do is we're going to put some glue on the magnet and around here, and we're going to line this up as best we can, and this part will not have glue, so that's going to be our little tab there, so in case we want to slide something and hold it. In your reserves you will find another square blue piece, and if you flip it over you will see this oval. We're going to cut that out, and then we'll return this back to our reserves. So let's cut out and around this, and we're going to ink around the edges with our sky blue. Grab a piece of scrap cardstock and just slide that right in behind there. We're going to apply glue to this, and we're going to glue that down just like that. So once you have it down, press. And then what you can do is remove this, and it will catch any glue that seeps through the little dots. Alright, let's open this up. We're going to work on what's going to be over here, which is this sheet. So I'm just going to set that off to the side and make sure that you fit, and you should, just like that. So we're going to be looking at this so that we are looking at it to where it is 5 1/8 inch wide. Look in your reserves for a scrap piece of cardstock that we can cut down. We want it 7 inches long by 1 3/4 inches wide. I'm into the small, the 1/2 inch EK Tools punch, and this one's polka dots, and I'm going to punch along the long side. Okay, so we have this, and we're going to make a little side pocket. Remember, we are 5 1/8 inch wide, looking at that. We're going to apply score tape to the right hand side. Make sure that's down really good, and we'll remove the backing. And we'll just give that a slight little bend, and make sure that you have white flaps that will go around the back. So when I place this, I'll just place this evenly. I'm going to turn it. It's easier for me to do that. And then I'm going to press in the middle and press out. Then I'm just going to wrap this flap around the back. And we'll do the same over here. Wrap the flap around the back and tack it down. In your reserves, you will find this long strip on the back it is blue. It is about 1.5 inches this way by about 7 5/8 long. So all we're going to do is just place that right on down, and we're going to measure to fit. We need our pencil. Okay, we'll make a mark with our pencil, and then we'll trim that. Small piece goes in our reserves. We're going to apply glue and glue that down. Okay, I'm going to move this on over there and make sure that that score tape is down really good. Moving this on over, I'm going to apply glue, and I'm going to glue this down. Remember, steer clear of that score line there. And that should fit, leaving just a little bit of white border here. So this is what we should have. Let's work on getting the paper ready for this. First, we do have to attach our magnet, so let's get the mate to this one. And we'll do the same thing we did before, putting a glue dot in the middle and bringing this over, tap it, put a little more glue there, and place our magnet. In your reserves, get this back out. On the other side, it is the tan, and I think that's what I would like to go with. Measure over 5 1/8 inch and cut. Put the larger one back in reserves for now. So we're going to turn this now, and we're going to measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. We'll put this in reserves. Check to make sure that you're going to fit, which yours should look like this. If you are fitting okay, leaving yourself a little bit of white border here and top and bottom, we can apply glue and glue that down. We're going to check our magnet, and it should flop over just like that. In your paper pack, you will find this beautiful print. And there's one in there that's kind of similar too. But on the back, it looks like this. We're going to measure over 5 1/8 inch and cut. Put the larger piece in your reserves. Let's measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. We'll put this one in our reserves. So this should fit. Check. And if it does, great. Set this off to the side. In your reserves, you will find this sheet. On the back, it looks like this. We're going to cut in between to separate these panels. We're going to use this one, and we're just going to stick this on our paper cutter and cut around this panel a little bit better. So this is what you should have. Look in your reserves first before cutting a new piece of cardstock. Cut a piece that is 4 inches by 6.5 inches. Okay, I have mine at 6.5 going across. At 5 7/8, let's score. And at 6 inches, let's score. And then we're going to fold on those score lines there. So my flap is going to be off to the top, or off. Yeah, at the top. We have a lower score line and an upper score line. On the top score line, let's pinch and let's attach this. Now you may be a little bit over, which is fine. So once you have this centered in there, pinch it and let's tack this down. And then we can push that up. This, we can apply glue now and glue that down, and we'll have a white border. Let's flip that up. In your reserves, grab the rose panel, and we're going to do the same thing, cutting around the panel. Before you add glue to the back, place it down and make sure that you have a white border, top, sides, and you're not interfering with that score line. If you are good, apply glue, and we'll glue that down. Okay, we'll flip that back. We're going to apply glue to this, and we're going to mount that, leaving yourself a white border around. I'm in my DBS, the bird cages. Let's flip that up. And we're going to apply glue to certain parts of this. So the glue is going to go back behind here. It's going to go right on over to the side there, just a little bit, as you can see. And we're going to set this at an angle. And I'm going to slide this back behind just in case some glue gets over. I'm going to give that a moment to grab. And this comes over the top. So what this is going to give us is room to put a picture back behind. So with this being shut, I am going to grab one of my bluebells and I am going to glue it down. First, I think I want a leaf. And I'm going to stick that leaf right there. Now I'm going to stick a bluebell right there. Okay, I have some of these Tim Holtz, and I have them inked with both the sky blue and the Paris Dusk. I'm just going to arrange them. In here. Just kind of putting them here and there. Just like that. So when I was cutting my leaves down, I'm actually going to be using one. Just kind of stick it here. And a smaller bluebell. Stick it right there. Okay, I'm going to grab one of my cream butterflies. And I'm going to stick it right here. Now be careful for the wings not to go over the edge too far, because if you do, it's not going to be able to open right. And if you need to add a little glue underneath there after spreading its wings, do so. So all we have left to do on this is to add some stickles. And I also wanted to add a little bling. So I'm going to cut a piece of bling to fit over here, and I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to use my other one, and I believe that's ice blue or whatever it was that I called out for the materials list, but I'm going to use this real sparingly and just put some here and there. I'm going to grab crystal, and I'm just going to add some to the Tim Holtz little ones. Okay. This page is complete. When it is dry, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to add the score tape to the back like I have been, and we will mount this in the book together. Okay, we're going to put our page 3 in the book, and the rest of the pages you'll be able to put in by yourself. So what we're going to want to do is bring it over once again. I have my score tape backing off the back. Bring it all the way over to where I can just see my scallops, and I'm going to leave a spacing at the top and the bottom and try to get this on as straight as possible. So once you have it down, remember you will definitely want to open this up and press down really good all over. And there we have it. We are on to page 4. Page 4, and it is coffee time for me. A little pick-me-up there. Okay, we set this off to the side. We're going to measure over 7.5 inches and cut. Stick this in your reserves. Now, because our page 3 is so bulky, we're not going to make page 4 bulky at all. In fact, this is going to be a real quick page for us. Check your reserves first before cutting into a new piece of cardstock. Cut a piece that is 2 3/4 of an inch wide by 7 inches long. And we are going to use that same exact punch, the dotted scallop, and we are going to punch along the long side. For me, I am going to stick this in right in the middle, so this shape here, the scallop, is going to be in the middle. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball to make sure I have the even amount hanging over the side, and then I'm going to start my first punch. Grab your score tape. Let's go with the side pocket for this. We're going to place a piece of score tape down the right side of our page. Make sure that score tape is down. And we're going to give this just a little bend. Try to get this in the middle. Bring it over to the side. And this is where I like to turn it. Press. And then we're going to wrap our flaps around the back, and then we'll tack them down. Grab a piece of scratch cardstock and make sure that that score tape is down. In your reserves, you should have this piece. If you were to lay it down, it's the perfect size top to bottom. Measure over 1 5/8 of an inch and cut. Put this in our reserves. And we're going to apply glue and glue that down. We have one more of these. And I'm going to stick this in here to protect this. I'm going to apply glue to this, and I'm going to match up those holes as best I can, if I can, and I'm going to glue that right on down there. I'm going to grab a little bit of my baby's breath, and I'll just put a little down right like this. Okay. I have one of the butterflies, the blue ones, and it's going to go right there. We're going to grab a couple things off this. This is in our reserves on the back. It looks like this. The first thing that we want to do is cut out, which one? This one, this blue one. So I'm just going to make a cut here. Get that out, and then I can cut around it. The next one is this brown one right here that I want to get at. And I'll clean that up as soon as I get it out. I'm going to put this back in my reserves, and we'll clean it up by cutting around it. This piece, I'm going to add a little glue up here. Just tuck that underneath the butterfly. Now with this one, I'm going to put glue back behind, and I'm going to find a little piece of scratch cardstock, and I'm going to place this and cut around it, leaving a little bit of a white border all the way around. So let's do that. Add a little glue to that, and we'll just stick that off to the side, like so. I have a little bud, one of the little Tim Holtz, and I'm just going to stick that right here. And I have a couple more. I'm just going to stick right in there. I'm going to grab the crystal stickles and that ice blue. I'm going to add just a little bit here to my bowl. I'm going to grab one of my cream colored ones, and I'm just going to stick it right here. Whoops, there goes my stickles. There, got it. And I'm going to add some stickles to my butterfly. Alright, one more thing before we finish up this page. We're going to cut a piece of bling that is going to fit along the outside there. And we're going to glue that down. Okay, this page is complete. When our stickles dry, then we can apply our score tape to the back and mount this in our book. And then we are on to page 5. Page 5, in your paper pack you will find another one of these sheets. On the back it looks like this. Right now it looks like our flowers are going down in stripes. We're going to turn it so it's this way. And we are going to measure over 6 inches and cut. Stick this one off to the side for page 6. Page 6 is our picture wheel. We're going to turn it like this, and we are going to measure over 7 3/4 of an inch and cut. Stick this in reserves. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 9 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/2 inches. I am into the large EK tool. It's a deeper edge, and I'm using diamond flowers. Again, if you don't have all these punches I have, use what you have, but you will want a deeper edge for this. And we're just going to punch along the long side. Okay, let's grab our score tape. And we're going to place it at the bottom of our page. And we're going to make sure that that score tape is down really good. Sometimes using the back of this or your bone folder tool helps. And we'll take the backing off, give this a little bend, and make sure we have flaps hanging over each side. And we're going to mount this as a pocket. We'll turn it over, we will wrap our flaps around the back side, and we'll tack these down. Okay. Let's grab the other cover to our paper pack. And we're going to turn it looking like this. Measure over 4 1/4 of an inch and cut. Put this in our reserves. We're just going to place that right like this. And we'll use our pencil to measure over to the side. Make a pencil mark, and let's cut. Before we go any further, make sure that you're going to fit. And I do. Alrighty, in your reserves you will locate this. On the back it looks like that. Cut a piece of cardstock. Look in your reserves first for something to cut down. For a piece that is, cut it to 4 1/4 by 7 inches. And then let's get our scoring board out. Really quick on this, I am not going to cut around the panel. I'm going to leave it as is as I cut it. There's a little bit of a border of the cream colored paper there. We'll just leave that. I am 7 inches across the board. At 6 1/8 inch, we're going to score. And at 6 1/4 inch, we're going to score. And then we're going to fold on our score line. And it is easier if you use that tool. So right now what we're going to do is you have, here's your flap, an outside score line and inside. On the inside one, pinch it so all we are looking at is what needs to be covered with our paper. And our flap is going to be off to the left side, tucked back underneath. Place this here and make sure that you fit. And you should have a white border around. If you do, apply glue and glue that down. If you need to trim yours down just a little bit to fit, do so. But I think everybody should be fitting pretty well. Okay, let's flip that over. In your reserves you will find a square or rectangular piece like this. On the back it looks like this. Place this down, and we're going to have to make some trimming to fit. So after looking at mine, I can see that we're going to measure over 1/8 of an inch and cut And then what we're going to do this way is measure over 1/8 of an inch and cut. And then we're going to place it down to make sure that that will give us a white border around our piece. Okay, I did some trimming on mine. I'm going to take a look now. And if I place this, I am far enough away from that inner score line and I can see white and white. I'm going to glue this down. Okay, I have mine down. So here is our piece. Here's this with our flap. The outside score line, let's pinch on that. We're going to slide that flap right back behind our panel here. That's going to be on our pocket. So once we have it in place, we will pinch it and we will tack this down. And then we can move that over. And that's what it's going to look like. So let's now apply glue to this and glue that down. Okay, we have one more step to go. We're going to flip that over. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by 3 3/8 inch. Okay, grab your ruler, place it down, tip to tip. We'll draw a line and then we will cut on it. And I'm going to put mine on my paper cutter so I can get a straight line there. I'm grabbing my 1/4 inch open scallop EK tool, the small one. And all I'm going to do is punch along this long side. This is what you should have. In your reserves, you should have this. It is a leftover scrap from when we had cut previously. And all we're going to do here, and it might be easier, we just bring that scallop up to the edge and we'll draw. And then we can cut out, kind of like what we did before. That we can see. Okay, I'm going to apply glue to this and glue that down. Next thing I'm going to do is put glue on the underside here, not where the scallop is. Just a nice thin little line here. Get down there too. And I'm going to place this right at the corner. Okay, I've got a couple of these small bluebells and I have a couple leaves that I made. And I'm just going to stick these right over here. Okay, you might want to add some stickles, and I'm going to add a little of the waterfall to this one around here, and I'm going to add crystal to my leaves. In my reserves, I have this, and I am going to cut out and around it. I'm going to mount it on white cardstock, like we've been doing. Put this back in my reserves. Okay, I've got mine mounted there. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. And if I can tuck it underneath there a little bit, I will. Make sure that you don't go over the side. And if you have anything showing there, that's where you can add a little flower. Whoops, I'm caught. It's generally when that happens, everything starts falling everywhere. It means it's time for me to do a quick organizing or cleanup of my area. It does get crazy, that's for sure. I've got sky blue on here and I'm just going to dab a little. Okay, page 5 is complete, and once the stickle dries, I'm going to place score tape on the back and I'm going to mount this in our book. We're on page 6, but let's take a look at what we got so far. Page 4 mounted in, page 5 mounted in, and now we are on page 6. We set this off to the side, and we're going to measure over 7 3/4 of an inch and cut. put this in your reserves, cut 2 pieces of cardstock that are 6 inches by 6 inches. And the easiest way I can tell you to do this is to apply glue to the back of one, and we're going to mount them together to thicken them up for our picture wheel. Okay, so we're going to set this off to the side. We have this. All right, find a bowl or something round. And the idea is we're going to use it to draw a large circle. Now notice my bowl, if you can see, is the edges kind of creep over the sides a little bit. And that's okay. I'm still going to use it. I'll just shape it up so that it works for me. So I'm just going to try and get this as best I can. And then, like I said, I will shape it. If your bowl is way far out, you don't want to use it. If you can find one that fits just inside that circle or the square, that is perfect. But you do want to try and get it to come to the edge. So for me, I am going to start cutting and shaping this into a nice circle as best I can. You do not have to be perfect, as you can see. So I'm a little flat on the side, so I am just going to do a little more trimming. So mine is as good as it gets. Okay, in your reserves you will find this square. It's blue and tan. And we are going to trace our circle. And then we'll cut that out. As you can see, I don't have a perfect circle, but that's okay. Just do the best you can, just like I am. Okay, I'll put this in my reserves in case I need something here. And I can always trim this up when I am done. Try and fit this the right way, that it fits the best, and I think that is the best, and then I can trim that up. So before we glue these together, we're going to find a piece of ribbon. So I've cut a little piece of white ribbon, and I'm just going to flop those over, and I'll add a little bit of hot glue so that this pull tab is hanging out the side. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply glue to this and glue that down. I'm using my 1.5 inch circle, and all I've done is on white cardstock is punch out 4 of these. Okay. If you do not have one, you will want to, again, maybe a shot glass or something to draw it out. Okay. Placing yours right here, and we're going to be about, so it's going to be about like this. Your first one should be about a 1/2 inch down. The only reason I have you putting this here is just for spacing here for now. About a 1/2 inch down, draw your first circle here, and then you can remove your other ones. Okay, and you're going to want to keep these. Take your punch and put it over that hole, and we're going to punch it. Okay, and you can keep this one actually, and we will erase. Okay, grab your craft knife. Let's get a brad. I'm going to use my cutting pad for this. And with these laid out here, that way it can tell me whereabouts I need to be in the middle. If you want to use a ruler and measure, you can. I'm just going to go somewhere here in the middle. And I'm going to use my knife to get through these layers. If you're a little off, it's okay. Don't worry. So just be very careful. You just want it to be big enough for your brad to go through. Okay. Let's get a brad. Any one will do. And we're going to place that. And we're going to place our wheels somewhere in the middle there. So if you place your brad there, if it hangs over a little, that's okay. Just kind of get it somewhere in there. And usually you can just push that brad right through the back paper there. And then you'll loosely kind of tag it over. So this is what we have. So how does this work? Well, we have one here that we can use, and we also have one of these, or several of these. So let's grab some paper. You should have this scrap. It is one of the scraps from the cover. And we're just going to punch 3 and that should be good. Okay, on 3 of these discs here, we're going to apply glue and glue these down. Okay, so how does this work and how do you place it? Okay, the idea is when you turn it, you're going to get a different picture. So for the picture part is once you find a picture that's smaller, or perhaps it's your grandkids, your children, just their face from a school picture, you'll plant it on here. And the reason why we did this so thick is so that you have the option of lifting it up. So the first one would be placed here when you have your photograph. Okay. Once that's placed, you can move to the next one and you would place your photo there, you know, glue it down. And then you can do it down here. Now you can also, whoops, and then you have that one, and then when you turn it you can have this one. This one is pretty thick, and that's why I had us do an extra one. I think that's what I want to do, is one that's a little thinner, because we do have a photo that will be going over it. So we'll just glue that here. Okay, so there it is, just like that. So when you're turning and you have them glued down. So let's get all our pieces, and we're going to set these off to the side, and we're going to finish up with the decorating of this. In your reserves you will have this piece on the back. It's blue. We're going to cut this one out, and we'll clean it up as soon as we get it out of there, and this will go back into our reserves. So this piece here, all we're going to do is on the underside over here is do a thin line, because it's going to place right like this, and you can use it to hold a tag or a small little photo. Just something different there. And we'll make sure that this is straight up, and we'll place it like this. And our brad's going to keep it popped up there. Okay, it's time for the bling, and the bling is going to go around the outside of our picture wheel. This is a good time for when you are doing it, just to slide a scratch piece of paper underneath, and we'll work slowly. And that will also help with any edges that don't look perfectly rounded. It will help cover that up. So we're going to take a moment, and it takes a moment for this to grab too. And we'll just work around the outside. So once you have it down, if you need to play with your bling to try and straighten out those edges to make it look better, you can. This is good enough for me. So these little discs that are for our picture wheel, I'm going to store those right here in the side pocket that we have, that we made. Okay, so to finish this page off, I'm going to get a cream colored butterfly, and I'm going to stick it right there. I'm going to get some of my stickles out and put a little bit on there. And when this is completely dry, I'm going to flip it over, put score tape on the back, and then mount it in my book. Page 6 is in our book, and we are now on to page 7 and 8, which we will be doing at the same time. Okay, so we're cutting for both page 7 and 8, and in your paper pack you will find this sheet on the back. It's that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure over 7.5 inches and cut. Put this in our reserves. We're going to turn it and look at our paper like this and measure over 6 inches and cut. Okay, let's stick that off to the side and get ready for our pockets. And we're going to do a different style of pocket. Cut 2 pieces of cardstock that are 9.25 inch by 4.25 inch. And the first thing we're going to do is just lay this out. And we'll want even amount of overhang on each side. With your pencil at the edge of your page, just make a little pencil mark. And we'll do this on both. And this will help us. Now let's get our scoring board. I'm 9.25 inches across the board. Your first pencil mark, where you see it, score. Then what you're going to want to do is measure to the left 1/8 of an inch and score. Come over to this side, and if you need to line up your pencil mark with a notch, do so. We're going to score where we put the pencil mark. Now we're going to measure over 1/8 of an inch from that and score again. Let's do that on both. So the first pencil mark here, measure over to the right 1/8 of an inch, score, pencil mark, score, measure to the left now 1/8 of an inch and score. Okay, so turn your page like this, and what we're going to do is score down on one side at 1/2 inch, score, and at 5/8 inch, score. And we're going to do that on both. 1/2 inch, score, 5/8 score. And then what we're going to do is erase any pencil marks that we can see. And this is going to give us a deeper pocket. So here we are. We have score lines here, here, and across the bottom. You will notice right down here you have an inner score line and an inner score line and an outer score line. On that inner score line, you're going to cut up to the top score line, going across. And then we're going to come over here, and that will clip out the sides. So, inner score line, up to the top one. And we're going to do the same thing here. Inner score line, and then across, inner score line, and then across on that top. Okay, what we're going to want to do now is fold on all those score lines. So we have our thing. I'm just going to flatten that back out. I am using the large EK tools, and this is embroidery. It's the deeper edge. And I'm going to punch across the top. Here's my flap down here on both of these. So let's do that. So this is what you should have on both of yours. Okay, so what we're going to first do is on the bottom here you have the lower score line and you have the top score line. On the lower one we're going to pinch that. Now we're going to put that back behind. Now, the biggest thing I can tell you here is that you're going to be looking for that inner score line on the sides, and that should line up with the sides of your paper. So once you have that in place, we're going to pinch that, and we're going to tack that down. Just like that. Okay, our next step is we have to push this back down onto the other score line before we wrap around the back. So push it down, and you should be able to feel that it's flat now. And we just wrap this back behind, and we will tack that down. And we will wrap this one back behind and tack that down. So you should have a nice pocket that will allow several picture mats. We're going to do that again on this one. So lower score line, we're going to pinch on that. We're going to wrap that back behind, and we'll line up those side score lines, the inner ones, with the side of our paper. And I think I got it there. We'll pinch and hold that, and we will tack down that flap. Next, we will push down so that we have our upper score line now, and we will feel to make sure that that is flat. And once that is, now we just wrap these around the back and tack them down. In your reserves, you will find this print. On the back, it looks like this. We're going to measure over 7.5 inches and cut. Stick this in our reserves. Now we're going to turn it so it's looking like this. Measure over 2 3/8 inch and cut. Then we're going to measure over again 2 3/8 of an inch and cut. Stick the smaller piece in our reserves. This should be a good fit for you on both. Let's glue that down. Okay, I'm using this like dangly lace here, this one, and I'm going to cut a piece that will fit across both of these. Okay, let's apply glue and glue these down. In your reserves, we'll pull this one back out. Let's cut this one out. And then we'll clean it up by put all this back in reserves for right now. Cutting around that. Let's grab our sky blue ink and just ink around the edges there. Then we're going to grab a piece of white cardstock, and we'll look in our reserves. If you need to cut a piece of your white cardstock, do so. Let's glue this down, and then we're going to cut around it, leaving just a little bit of a white border, kind of like what we did before. I've got mine done. One thing we're going to want to do is make sure that you get glue underneath these tassels so that they don't come up. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, it looks like it goes like this, is underneath here we are going to add glue to make just a little bit of a pocket, and this will take a moment to dry, and we're just going to stick that right in the middle there. If you need to use a little hot glue, do so, but I recommend using this so that it doesn't splatter, and then you can add more glue on the sides as needed. If you have clamps, you can clamp that down for the glue to hold until it's dry, like so. We're going to set this off to the side. Again, these pages are almost identical with the exception of we're going to have a fold-out page on this. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches by 7.5 inches. And then we'll get our scoreboard out. We are 7.5 inches across the board at 6 and 3/4 inch we're going to score, and at 7 inches we're going to score. And then we'll fold on those score lines. Now, this should slide over, making it so it will fit the thickness over here, and mine does. Okay, so let's work on the inside. So I'm going to turn this over, and the flap is off to the left. In your reserves, you will find this long piece. It's the blue. It's the cutting from when we cut our base pages. Measure over 6.5 inches and cut. So I'm going to show you a little trick here when you are short on paper and you need to preserve as much as you can. If you were to place this down, you will notice if you centered it between the inner score and the out, we'll have a nice white border, but we are short for the page. So what we do is, because I want to put a pocket here and no one will ever see any white cardstock we mount underneath here, we can get away with that. So in your reserve, check to see if you have a long strip like this, and this is approximately what you want, about 2 and 1/4 inch this way, and it's longer than our page, so it's all good. So what we want to do is we want to cut the same width as this. So measure over 6.5 inches and cut. Okay, grab your score tape and put a piece right at the edge of the top of this piece of cardstock. This is where your scoring board or something with a straight edge is going to help you. I'm going to move this out of the way here. So we're going to remove this backing. Like so. Place your piece where the sticky is right here going across. Place this piece against the edge and just bring it up enough to cover that score tape. And this will help you get that on straight. So that is a little trick. Now what we're going to do is place a pocket, and you will not be able to see this anymore. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 8 inches by 4 inches, and we're going to get out, I'm going to use embroidery, the same one I used over there, and I'm going to punch along the long side. So this is what we should have. Let's grab our score tape, and we're going to line it down here, and we're going to make sure that score tape is down really good. And we're just going to do a basic pocket wrap like we've been doing. And give that a little bend, making sure I have flaps on either side. And we will fold these back behind and tack them down. We're going to do some trimming onto the side here. So at this point, what we want to do, measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. Check to make sure that you don't need to do any further trimming, but you should fit in here. So once you've verified that, remember the flap is off to the left here, we're going to apply glue and glue that down, making sure you are not near that inner score line. In your reserves, you'll find that long skinny piece, and if you place it down, you will notice that you will be short from reaching the top, and that is okay. Let's use our pencil, make a mark where we need to trim, and trim it. Apply glue and glue that down to the bottom. The back of our paper pack, we're going to get this out because we can use this trim piece where we need to cover. So where we're going to cut is, you see this line here? Right here, right on top of the darker blue, and we're going to trim that all the way down, and I'll show you mine. Okay, now measure over 5/8 of an inch and cut. Put this long piece in your reserves, and now we are going to measure to fit. So we'll place that down, make a pencil mark, and cut. Apply glue and glue that down. Okay, in your reserves you will find the piece off of the cover of our paper pad. This panel here, let's just cut that right on out. And we'll stick this back in our reserves. Alright, this is where you might want to get your little fussy cutting scissors out to make it easier. We are going to cut out the image of the bird. So I will show you what I am going to cut out, and then this little flower piece here is also going to be cut out. So give me a moment and I'll show you what mine looks like. So this is what my birds look like, and this is what the little flower looks like. We're going to apply glue and glue that down to a scratch piece of white cardstock, and we will cut around it. It's going to give it more strength, and I am going to leave a little bit of white showing around it, but you don't have to. Same thing goes. Glue that down, and I'm going to cut around it, and I'm going to ink around the edges first with my sky blue. And you can do that with this one as well if you'd like. I'm just going to do the flowers. So this is what mine looks like. And now is a good time to grab a scratch piece of cardstock and just stick that right back behind in your pocket. And we're going to apply glue and to the majority of the bird. And we're going to glue that down right like that. And this is what captures the excess glue that seeps through. So I'm just going to dab that off a little, get all that up. Okay, so the flowers we're just going to position right like that, kind of layering a bit over. I'm going to grab one of my little Tim Holtz flowers, dab a little hot glue, and stick that right there. Okay, so what we want to do now is just flip that over. Our flap is off to the right, and we want to get the front piece done. In your reserves you will find this piece. This is 6 1/8 by about 3.5 inches. So looking at it this way, we're going to measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. So right now with your flaps, we have our piece. Your inner score line, pinch on that, so all you are looking at is what needs to be covered. We're going to apply glue to this and glue this down, leaving a white border top, bottom, and side. In your reserves you will find this piece, and it's gray on the back. And you will notice if we were to place this down, it's too long. Measure over 5 7/8 of an inch and cut. Cut a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches by 5 inches. And then we are going to use, I think I want to use the 1/4 inch open scallop. Okay, so this looks, I want to make sure you get the right side. So on this side, which is the longest, and that is 6 inches, we are going to punch along that side. So let's do that. Take your piece, apply glue, and we're going to mount that, centering it. You will have a little bit of a white border here, and you will have a white border between your trim. Okay, let's open up that flap so that we can lay this down. This is going to be a pocket, and we have no flaps to wrap. So when we apply glue, we're going to do a fine line of glue on this side, and this side, and we'll leave that alone. I've got my glue all the way around, and now I'm going to bring that over to the left side here of my panel, and I'm going to press. And I'm going to press in like this a little to give it a little lift. Make sure that that glue is down. Okay, we are ready to attach this, so we're just going to slide this back on there. Make sure you are even from top to bottom. Once you are even, pinch it. Whoops, I'm not quite even there. And then we'll tack it down. So, this is what we should have. Alright, so we are just about done. If you would like to apply your score tape now to the back side, you can. I'm going to add a little baby's breath over here, like so, and one of my bluebells, and I'm going to add some of my Tim Holtz white flowers with some ink on it. So this is what I did, and I used the sky blue. If you would like to add some of your stickles, I'm going to add some with my mercury glass to my bluebells a little bit there. Okay, so I've got some of my mercury glass on here, and you know, page 7 and 8 are pretty much done. The only thing that I'm going to do, if I can find it in this mess, is my bling, and I'm going to put a layer right there. Alright, found it. It was buried. So, like I said, I'm just going to cut a piece to fit top to bottom, and I'll glue it down. Page 7 and 8 are complete, and we can mount these in our book. We are now on to page 9. Page 9, in your paper pack, you will find this sheet. On the back, it looks like this. Measure over, we're going to go 7.5 inches and cut. You can put this in your reserves. Now measure over 6 inches and cut. Okay, so for page 9, we're going to use this one. This we're going to set off to the side. We're not going to put it in our reserves so we don't accidentally cut into it. This one is really easy to do. And the first thing that we want to do is grab our 1.5 inch circle. If you are not using a circle punch at all, what you can do is we're just going to clip out a little bit off to the side and draw in a curve. Those of us that are using the circle, we're just going to come in a little bit, just about that much, somewhere in the middle there, and clip that out. Got a piece of cardstock that is 7.5 inches by 6 inches, which is the same as our sheet. And this is just going to have a side pocket on it. So on our piece of cardstock, we're going to put score tape along the top edge, this side and this side. No score tape here. So let's do that. This is what you should have. Let's remove that backing from the score tape. And all this is a little side pocket. And then we can just do a little decorating on the top. So you can stick a big photo here if you want. Okay, so all we're going to do is lay our piece over this, lining it up as best we can, like so. So now you have a side pocket. Okay, flip this over. Let's just get this ready to go. We're going to apply our score tape like we normally would before we mount these into our book. Score tape around the outside edges, 1 down the middle and 2 on either side, just like we've been doing. Okay, so it's going to be where our opening is going to be off to the left. I am in my DBS bird cages, and I'm going to grab the medium-sized one. And I'm going to get my glue out, and I'm only going to apply glue back behind the bottom and over here so I can still slide a picture in there. And I'm going to stick that at an angle like so. I've got some baby's breath here, and I'm just going to bring that down. I need a leaf. I have a couple leaves that I've made. And I'll stick one right here. Stick one right there. And I have a medium-sized bluebell. I'm going to stick that off to the side. And I'm going to grab some of my Tim Holtz flowers here. And I'm going to do a mixture between the sky blue and the Paris dusk. Okay, and I will be adding some stickles to this. So I added some of my waterfall stickles to the flowers here. I did put some of the crystal on some leaves and outlined the DBS birdcage there. Find this sheet in your reserves. On the back it's this. It's just a gray. And we're going to cut out this piece here. Put the rest of your stuff in reserves. We'll apply glue. First we are going to ink around the edges with sky blue. We will mount it to some white cardstock, and then we will cut around that, leaving a little bit of a white border. After you've done that, let's just apply a little glue here and glue that down. I have one of the lighter blue butterflies, and that's just going to go right here. And this page is complete. And as soon as our stickles dries, we can mount that in our book. We are now on to page 10. We're on page 10, and we set this off to the side. Cut 3 pieces of cardstock that are 4 1/8 by 6 1/4 inches. And then let's get our scoring board out. And we are 6 1/4 inches across. At 5 7/8, we're going to score each one of these. Alright, we'll keep this tool handy here. I'm going to grab that 1/4 inch punch. That is the scallop. And our score line is right down here, so on each one of these we're going to punch along this side. So let's do that. Okay, so this is what you should have. Let's fold on that score line, and we will use our tool to crease that really good. Okay. Let's flip that over. The peak is up on each one of these. We're going to grab our score tape, and we're going to place a piece right there on that little, our peak is here, and then on our little flap. So let's do that, and you will definitely want to clip off any score tape that is overhanging, and we're going to use our tool to make sure that score tape is down really good. Okay, let's set these off to the side for a moment. In your paper pack, you will find this sheet on the back. It is this. Measure over 4 inches and cut. Set this off to the side for now. We're going to turn it. Measure over 5 1/2 inches and cut, and measure over again 5 1/2 inches and cut. Stick this in your reserves. Let's grab one of these. Our peak is up, and make sure that this will fit, giving you a white border top, bottom, and if you were to put this to the back, you would see a white border off to the side. On 2 of these, we are going to apply glue and glue that down. Let's stick these off to the side. The peak is up on this one. In your reserves, you will find this piece. Okay, we're going to measure over 5/8 of an inch and cut. And that will put you just to the right-hand side of the lettering here. Alrighty, now what I want you to do is, we got that piece off, measure over 4 inches and cut. Measure over 5 1/2 inches and cut. Okay, let's make sure that we fit. Remember, the peak would be up. Let's fold that back behind and place our piece down. You should have a nice fit just like you did with these. Apply glue to the back and glue that down. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just flip these over, and the hinges will be off, the flap will be off to the left. Let's find our paper for the back side. In your reserves, you will have this piece. On the back, it looks like this. So I'm going to look at mine like so, like this. I'm going to measure over 4 inches and cut. Your leftover piece, that little skinny, put it in your reserves. Now measure over 5.5 inches and cut. Measure over again 5.5 inches and cut. Alright, I got one of these. Let's make sure that this will fit before we glue it down, making sure you are away from that little score line. And we will apply glue to the back of this and glue that down. The next one, we'll grab this one again and we will do the same thing. We've got one more here. Let's find our paper. In your reserves, you will have this piece. On the back, it looks like this. We're going to put this on our paper cutter and we're going to trim. If you were to place this down, that will be a good fit. Now we're going to trim the sides where if you have any of the cream colored backing. So all we'll be looking at is the postcard. By the time you're done trimming this, you should be 5.5 inches across. If you need to chop off a little more, do so. Let's apply glue. Make sure you fit first, and we'll glue that down. Okay, it is time to put this together. So how these are going to play out is like this across our paper. So the first one we're going to do is, and this is the easiest way, is on one of these, matters not which one, I have this one, we're going to remove our score tape backing. Okay, we're going to fold it back behind. We're going to place this down to where it does not go over. I have maybe 1/8 of an inch from the edge there. And I'm somewhere in the middle. And I want to place this so I'm straight. And once I do that, I can press down. And I can use this tool to help too. Okay, the next one I want is this one. And these will relax over time too, just so you know. We're going to place the second one. Okay. And when we place that, we're just going to butt it up next to the other, kind of like when we did our page hinges, trying to stay straight. And if you don't want to do it that way, you don't have to, but I'm going to do it that way. And just do a light tap in the middle so I can make sure that I am straight. So I've got it hooked on back behind, bring it down, and press. And that should line you up right next to the other one. Okay, the last one. Here we go. I'm going to just hook it right there. I'm going to bring this over. Make sure that this is going to lay flat. And press. Okay, you can give your page a little bit of a bend like this if you'd like. Let's get the strap to hold this down. Look in your reserve for a scrap piece that is 3.5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. And then what we're going to do is grab our scoreboard and we're going to lay this down. We're 7 inches across. At 6 inches, we're just going to score. And we'll score once and we will fold. Whoops, I'm caught. Okay. So we're going to do this with a magnet. So give your page just a little bend like this. Place this back behind. your page, pinch it up at the top here, flip it over, and let's tack that down. Let's start there. So when we do this, we want it to have just a little bit of a bend so that it can reach down, because when we place our page, this goes flat, and we want this to be able to grab down here. Okay, so let's start off by grabbing one of our magnets, and we're going to place it up here, and I'm going to be about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, in the center somewhere there. We're going to get our paper to cover this, and then we'll place the other magnet. This is the back piece to our paper pack, and we're going to do the same thing. Right here is the dark blue stripe. We're going to trim that all the way down. We are done with this, so you can throw that away. Grab the back to your other paper pack. We're going to do the same thing right on the other side of that blue. We're going to cut. Okay, let's double these up, measure over 5 7/8 of an inch, and cut. Put your leftover pieces in your reserve. Let's check to make sure that we're going to clear that score line, and I am. So the first one I'm going to lay is this one. Make sure I got some glue around the edges there. Okay, and I'm going to place it so the stripe is here and right over that magnet. Okay, this one, stripes here. Apply your glue and place that right over the other one. So this is what yours should look like. And we're going to bring that over. And we're going to make sure that that has a little bit of a bow in it. So once you have it where it's supposed to be, and I'm holding it there as you can see, I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to keep holding it. I'm going to grab the mate, place it, and put my glue down. So that is what's going to help keep these down. And if you push this all the way down, this should still grab like that. Let's find our paper for this. We're going to use that leftover, and we're going to do the same thing, except we need to cut these down a bit. So I'm going to double these up, measure over 5 7/8 of an inch, and cut. Before we start gluing down, let's make sure we fit, and I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a white border here in the top and the sides. So mine are going to fit, and I'm going to do the same way I did before. Apply glue here, place it. I'll apply glue to this one, and I will overlap and place that one. Okay, so this is where we're at. In our reserves, we will find this sheet. Let's cut this one out. Alrighty, this looks good without it being backed. We have white back behind. I'm going to apply glue to this and glue it down to this. So for me, I'm just going to kind of look and see what I need to do, and I'll wipe up any glue, and I will place that. Okay, this page is just about complete. Let's apply our score tape to the back like we do, and then we'll add a couple things here. I've grabbed one of my darkest butterflies, and I'm going to attach it right here. I'll add a little bit of my crystal stickles. And this page is complete. As soon as our stickle dries, we can mount that in the book, along with this one. I think mine is dry over here. Okay, I have mine mounted in my book. We are now on to page 11.